Welcome to Silberman Law Firm's Weekly Docket, episode 54, where we talk legal news and practical law. Today is January 23rd, 2025. I'm Phil Silberman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Austin Black. Austin, were you in Texas for Snowmageddon, or were you out of town for that?
I was in Texas for it when it got really cold. I left on the last day of it, but we didn't get any snow in Dallas. It was just cold.
Well, Houston was absolutely slammed with snow. It was ridiculous. There was like some guy being pulled behind an SUV on the Southwest Freeway, skiing down the Southwest Freeway, I think while drinking a beer. But all right, we have some real legal issues to discuss today, Mr. Black. So
Okay.
What is on our docket today, Austin?
So for our legal news section, we are first talking about Trump issuing an executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship. And can he do that? We'll also talk about how that started and sort of how we got to the situation that we're in right now. And then moving on to our legal question section, we'll be talking about how dangerous, quote unquote, one-page business agreements can be. We'll have people call us sometimes and ask us, hey, I need just a one-page agreement for this sale of something. And it's usually not a great idea. We'll tell you what the legal effect of those sorts of agreements are if you decide to do one. Usually an attorney's never going to draft one, but if you do it yourself, we'll let you know what you're doing. Then can you charge whatever interest rate you want to charge if you were giving a loan in a business in Texas? Well, what do you guys think? Maybe not. Some states have regulations on that, some don't, but we'll let you know what it is in Texas. And then our rant and rave section, talking about the Biden family pardons that Phil thinks no one is talking about, but people in my spheres are talking about quite a lot. So yeah.
But not just the Biden family. It's also the Anthony Fauci pardon as well. And then also some other people like Liz Cheney. But the one that's I think is crazy, the ones I think is crazy are like the actual brothers and sisters of Joe Biden and
Yeah.
the Anthony Fauci ones. All right. Let's go ahead and get it kicked off with our legal news section. And the first story we're covering is Trump issuing this executive order ending birthright citizenship. So can he do that? Let's talk about the law first. And as lawyers, we all took constitutional law, right? So I did not care for it very much. Austin took it. He went to the University of Texas. That's a much fancier law school than I went to at University of Houston. They probably had some great constitutional law professors. Tell us a little bit, Austin, about the 14th Amendment.
Yeah, I agree. My icon law professor was actually my favorite professor in all of law school. He's now the dean of the school too. But anyway, birthright citizenship, it comes from the first sentence of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, of an extrapolation from that, which states, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And so that was taken used to give anyone who has children in the U.S. birthright citizenship. So,
well, let's stop. Let me just make a quick comment on that. Okay, I mean the language itself in the Constitution. I went back and read it for the first time in a very long time. It seems fairly unambiguous to me. I mean, don't you agree? I mean, there's really no wiggle room on that. It just, if you were to be a literal reader of the Constitution, Austin, would you agree that, hey, if you're born in the United States, you get to be a citizen? Do you agree or disagree?
Yes, that is what the Constitution says. Yes.
So what was the history of the 14th Amendment? What was it designed to do, and what did it come about to do?
Well, the 14th Amendment was adopted after the close of the Civil War, with the closest, obviously, the 13th Amendment and the 15th Amendment, and it settles the question of the citizenship of freed American-born former slaves who were not citizens when they were slaves. So this served to make them citizens after the Civil War.
Yeah, it had a very specific purpose, right?
Thanks.
I mean, it's as simple as if you were a slave during slavery, Civil War and prior, and you were born in this country, you're an American-born slave, you're now a citizen, hence the term birthright citizenship. That's what the specific purpose at the time was. Congress at that time, back in 1868, was not envisioning this thing being a great magnet for illegal immigration. And the hardliners say, okay, this encourages birth tourism, encourages pregnant women to rush across the border, encourages this thing called anchor babies. I don't think that Congress in 1868 was envisioning sort of a mass onslaught of Latin American people and people really from all over the world coming to the United States to get citizenship. I mean, what do you think about that point, Austin?
No, I definitely do not think that they did.
Well, do the intentions of Congress in 1868 matter for the interpretation of this constitutional provision of the 14th Amendment today?
I would say probably not. If you start doing that, then I mean, you're gonna have so many things that can be tossed aside in terms of their current interpretation. I mean, the most glaring one in my mind would just be the Second Amendment, right? Like every like person more in favor of gun control points to the fact that obviously at the time the founding fathers never foresaw like people having machine guns or things like that, right? So obviously they can't mean everyone would be able to own that.
Well, that's an excellent point. Okay, because this is going to work both ways. And Austin brings up Second Amendment right to bear arms. The Second Amendment was really designed in case the English come back to try to make us a colony again, so that we had the right to bear arms against the crown. I mean, that was the intentions. And by the way, they did come back. That was the whole War of 1812. And so conservatives, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that the 14th Amendment only intended to free slaves, therefore you can't use it to defeat all of the forms of birthright citizenship. The Second Amendment, you'd have to say, well, it was designed to keep England from invading and to keep oppressive governments. So, now the right to bear arms, Second Amendment, is being, as Austin points out, is being used for all kinds of possession of weapons.
I mean, or you could say it only means you have the right to own a flintlock musket.
Yes, well, that's a bit extreme. All right, so back to the 14th Amendment. This was challenged. Okay, in this case, Wong Kim Ark v. United States. The 1898, there was a Chinese guy, Wong. All right, he was a 24-year-old child of Chinese immigrants. He was born in the U.S. He was trying to get back to the United States, but he was denied re-entry after visiting China, and Wong sued, successfully argued that because he was born in America, he was in fact a U.S. citizen, and his parents' immigration status did not matter. That's the seminal case, 1898, Wong Kim v. United States. So, Austin, does it surprise you if I were to tell you most legal scholars, and I consider us to be legal scholars,
you and I to be some of the preeminent ones. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Preeminent ones. Yeah. Right up there with whoever else. Most legal scholars like us, all right, agree.
The fact that we have to say whoever else probably shows that we're messing her.
Austin and I are practical, hardworking Texas attorneys that help clear title on deeds and do probates.
See, this is why Phil said that he did not like his con law class, because con law is all about like this stuff. It's just theoretical things that don't really come into practical application in day-to-day life. So yeah,
I could not make any money, okay, if I were a constitutional lawyer. All right, I have to do things. We have to do things like draft deeds for people and represent small business owners in breach of contract lawsuits. But today we are constitutional law scholars, and we agree with everybody else that Trump cannot end birthright citizenship with an executive order. That is a foregone conclusion, right?
Yeah.
So was Trump stupid? Why did he do it?
I mean, okay, if you're just asking that question in isolation, yes, I actually do think Trump is kind of, but I don't think that a lot of the people he surrounds himself with are. Okay. And for no, I don't think that this was done with him thinking that he's actually going to get birthright citizenship revoked. I agree that it was done very likely with the intention to highlight the issue and in the hopes that Congress puts it before themselves again. So
here's what I think is really happening. So Austin mentioned, okay, let's put it before Congress to get this thing properly passed. Now, if you were to really end birthright citizenship, Austin, you would have to do an amendment to the Constitution.
correct.
And what Austin, back from your constitutional law days, what to get an amendment to the Constitution passed, what needs to happen?
You need a supermajority from both the House and the Senate, so 2/3 vote.
Right.
And then once you have that, you have to get an approval by 3/4 of the states.
Okay, people, let me just say this. There is no way that is ever going to happen on birthright citizenship. That our country is so divided and so politically polarized that may never happen for anything, right? So here's what I really think is going on. Trump is giving the very conservative U.S. Supreme Court another chance at this. And SCOTUS is going to have a chance to overrule Wong Kim v. United States. That's what this is about. So when they filed the lawsuits to block Trump's executive order, they knew that everybody knew that was coming. This is going back up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we're going to see if the U.S. Supreme Court sides with Wong Kim or not. Austin, you're laughing. You think it's crazy?
I mean, I will say, I think him and his team like posturing for their base in some way. So it may just be that they may not think there's any chance of even the Supreme Court ruling in their favor on this, because I don't think there is any chance that the Supreme Court's going to rule in their favor on this. I mean, even just recent movements from the Supreme Court, seeing them not forestall his recent conviction, right? I don't think they're going to go for this. I'd be very surprised, but we'll see. So
do you believe that it's okay for, say, someone from China to come to the United States to have their baby here so that baby can be a U.S. citizen? Do you think that's okay?
Oh, I mean, no, I didn't say I agree with birthright citizenship. I disagree with it. The majority of the countries in the world don't have it. The only countries in the world that have completely unrestricted birthright citizenship are almost all in the Americas. So you got Canada, the U.S., and then almost every single bit of South America. And then you have 2 countries in Africa. And aside from that, some places have restricted birthright citizenship, but nowhere else has completely unfettered. Not a single place in Asia has entirely birthright citizenship, It's just crazy. So yeah.
I think most people agree. I think this needs to be stopped. I don't know that we have a valid legal mechanism for stopping it. I do think it's unlikely the Supreme Court, in light of just how unambiguous the U.S. Constitution, the 14th Amendment really is, will overturn Wong Kim v. the United States. But you never know. And maybe it's all just to kind of appease a campaign promise. Who knows?
Yes.
All right, we got to move on to our legal questions section.
Okay.
All right, we get all these clients that call us, and they're like, "Hey, I want to do this business deal, and it's just this kind of like one-off transaction. Just do me a simple like 1-page agreement. Maybe it's like, hey, I want to build a house with my friend, and then we're gonna flip the house, right? Just do a 1-page agreement to do that. I mean, and really what they're trying to do is avoid legal fees, avoid expensive legal fees. They're trying to keep their legal fees down.
Yeah.
And
and you should do that. You should do that. You should keep your legal fees down on the front end, because if you do that, you'll have much higher legal fees on the back end, and you will bring us a lot of business.
Yes. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is what Austin pointed out. So I think what people need to understand about this is anytime you enter into an agreement, whether it's verbal or whether it's written, no matter the simplicity or the length of the document, these kinds of agreements are usually one of 2 things. It's either an equity agreement, like a partnership, or it is a loan agreement, some type like lending money. All right. That's usually the 2 buckets these things fall into. And whatever you're doing, okay, you need to understand the ramifications of each one, and you need to do the proper documents. Okay. So that's either if it's a loan, if you're going to give someone $1 million and you're going to get your principal back plus interest, that's a loan. You need to have a security agreement. You need to have a promissory note, and you need to perfect it with a lien filing, whichever the collateral may be. If it's an equity agreement, it's a partnership agreement, then fine. You need to do like a single purpose entity, like an LLC, or you just need to do an actual general partnership documents. And there's tax ramifications of that. So, and it requires a file. So the state of Texas is going to, if you just do kind of a one-page agreement and it looks like a business deal, the state of Texas is going to construe that as a type of partnership agreement or a joint venture agreement.
Yes.
If you start putting things in there that look like loans, like it's a lender situation, the state of Texas is going to interpret that as a loan. And you don't want to be without the proper documents. So, yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Austin?
You definitely want to make sure you have the right documents on the front end. I cannot tell you how many times I have, and it's usually in the context of people renting out a commercial space and then defaulting. They don't have really any sort of agreement of what sort of entity was, and so they're all construed as general partners, and then they have personal liability for that entire commercial lease that was broken. Really bad idea. So yeah, get things straight, figure out what you are before you go into it. And if you were going to take on personal liability for a lease, make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah. All very sound advice. So, all right, next legal question. Okay. Can I charge whatever interest rate I want if it is a business loan in Texas?
You can do it. It just is illegal.
Let's start with a background on lending in Texas. All right. Okay. So if you're going to lend money to somebody else, typically if it's a consumer loan, you're going to need a type of license. That's a whole nother issue. We're not diving into that one on this question, but depending upon the type of loan, there are absolutely rate limits on consumer lending. All right. Charging a higher rate that's allowed by law. That's considered usury. And Article 16, Section 11 of the Texas Constitution states that in the absence of any other legislation, contracts for an interest rate of higher than 10% a year shall be deemed usurious. Remember, the state of Texas was founded by criminals and debtors, so we have very friendly debtor laws, okay? And it also says if you don't specify the interest in the contract, then you're at 6%, it's just the default, okay? Very bare bones stuff in the Constitution, but that's not where most of it is. Austin, where are most of our finance regulations located in the state? So
in the finance code,
Texas finance code. So like, for example, like section 303.0019, it caps interest at 18% a year. Generally, that's when you'll often see a promissory note. You'll see maximum allowed interest by law. You'll often see 18% stated there. But because Texas is so debtor friendly, right? We are one of the few states that where we do regulate commercial loans. Most other states will just say, well, if this is a commercial loan, you people are big boys and girls. Yes. We don't need to regulate your rate of commercial interest, but Texas does regulate them, and we do have commercial usury laws. So
yes.
Do you have the definition of a commercial loan for us, Austin?
It's a loan made primarily for business, commercial, investment, agricultural, or similar purposes.
Yeah, there you go. And they're authorized, Chapter 306 of the Texas Finance Code. And they are generally subject to a commercial usury ceiling of 18% annual interest. And that rate can float with inflation to 24% or 28% for loans exceeding $250,000. So that is the law. So if you're in a business and you want to make a loan out there, you absolutely are subject to usury laws. Final warning, Austin, be careful of disguising loans. Do you know what I mean by disguising loans?
Yes, so making it not look like a loan.
Right. So if Austin, it's that old story where if it clucks like a chicken and walks like a chicken, it must be a chicken, right? Or a duck. If it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck.
I think you're going to say clucks like a duck. If it clucks like a duck, then you probably got some really weird animals.
Right. No. Look, if I show you a picture of a chicken, you can't call it a duck, and vice versa.
I don't know what it identifies as.
Yeah, no, look, that's enough of that snowflake stuff on this show, okay? You better well know what a chicken is. That means if I give you $1 million, all right, and I tell you that I want my $1 million back plus another $1 million in a year, I don't use the words loan and I don't use the words interest. I have just charged you a usurious rate of interest at 100%. I want to be clear about that.
Yes.
So, yes, be careful
Not
of that.
good.
And if you are making loans out there, a usury savings clause that they can be your friend. All right. That's if you screw the whole thing up, if you screw the pooch and you put a little clause in there that says, if this contract is later found to be usurious, then we're forming the contract to the maximum rates allowed by law. That's your friend. Okay. Yeah. So that's the answer to that one. All right. That brings us to my favorite part of the show. And that is our rant and rave section. And this one's got me fired up. This is the Anthony Fauci and Biden family pardons. Okay.
Biden not just those two groups, to be clear, not just those two groups. There's more, but yeah, we'll go into it. Yeah.
Tell the listeners, since you're in the know about this was kind of news to me. Since you know, just give the listeners the background on what he did.
The day of the inauguration, before Trump is sworn in, okay, before in the indoor inauguration ceremony, Biden issued another wave of pardons. Okay, and he specifically pardons 5 members of his family, people whose names I have never heard. I don't think many people had heard their names before.
I have not heard their names. I mean, James B. Biden, okay, Francis W. Biden, those are his brothers. His sister, Valerie Biden Owens, and her husband, John T. Owens, as well as Sarah Jones Biden, the wife of James Biden. So brothers, sisters, brothers-in-laws, sister-in-laws, they all get a pardon. Anthony Fauci got a pardon
and
too.
Anthony Fauci. And then every single person who served on the January 6th committee or testified in favor of its proceedings, though all those people were pardoned. And what I was going to tell you before the show, Phil, that you wanted me to say, one of the Congress people, Democrat congressman, who was on the January 6th committee, he around that time that those proceedings were going on, he went on a lot of different morning shows and gave interviews. And in one of the interviews, he said, when you're seeking a pardon, it really just shows that you have a guilty conscience, you know that something you did was wrong. He's one of the people who received a pardon.
That is crazy. All these people needed pardons. I'm wondering what they did. But let's talk about the lawyer. Here's the question. I did not know this. Does a president have the power to preemptively pardon when a person has not yet been indicted? That's the question I wanted to know. I don't know. Did you know the answer to that, Austin? I did not know the answer.
I did not know before looking at our show notes. No.
Okay, so Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution reads, he's referring to the president, shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Okay. So you always hear the president has broad power to pardon someone before they are indicted, convicted, or sentenced of a federal crime. However, take note that the language in the Constitution does not expressly say that a president may issue a preemptive pardon or a pardon before they've actually been charged with something. Okay. It doesn't say that they can't, though, but we have a case. Tell us about that case, Austin.
Yes. 1866, Florida Garland, Supreme Court described the president's authority to pardon as, quote, unlimited except in cases of impeachment, and extending to every offense known to the law and able to be exercised either before legal proceedings are taken or during their pendency or after conviction and judgment.
Yeah. So it's according to that U.S. Supreme Court case, it is a really broad power. That is our legal precedent. So, there you have it. We do have some historical examples of preemptive pardons. I'm not that old, but I looked this up, right? We had President Gerald Ford, pardoning the former president, Richard Nixon. Remember Richard Nixon, the whole Watergate scandal kind of thing. Nixon resigns. Ford's pardon extended to all offenses against the United States that Nixon has committed or may have committed between January 20th, 1969 and August 9th, 1974. So you've got some historical precedents there. I don't think we're going to get a legal challenge here. I think it's pretty well settled that presidents do, in fact, have the right to preemptively pardon. I'm more fired up about why we're pardoning these people and what crimes they actually have committed, allegedly. We've got some information.
Absolutely.
Fauci was pardoned backdated to 2014 for anything he did between 2014 and 2025. And I want to know, why does he need a pardon backdated to 2014? COVID was 2020, and he testified before Congress in 2024. So I want to know what Anthony Fauci was doing.
No idea.
Yeah.
Apparently, some people do know what he was doing back in 2014 and don't want him to get charged. This is crazy.
Yeah, who knows? It's probably something nefarious with this whole gain of function research thing. Probably approving funding the Chinese. He was in bed with the Chinese doing gain of function research, and maybe that's it. But Rand Paul,
I actually
Rand
don't know
Paul
what that
wants
is.
to.
What are you talking? Gain of function research? What is?
Austin is making light, okay, of the fact that when Anthony Fauci was testifying before Congress in 2024, he was being very evasive on his knowledge of what gain of function research really was, and just how ridiculous in Anthony Fauci's position he would try to obfuscate his knowledge of gain of function. That's what Rand Paul wants to get him on. Rand Paul wants to get him on perjury for testifying before Congress in 2024. So if Joe Biden wants to pardon him for that, fine. All right, I'll live with that. But I want to know what was going on back in 2014. And here's why Rand Paul doesn't like him as a libertarian. Have you heard the Anthony Fauci recorded quote? I guess he was being recorded on the phone with somebody. Well, have you heard this when he was talking about whether people should be vaccinated?
Yeah, and he said, quote, that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Yeah. Now, Austin, I'm not like an anti-vaxxer. I was vaccinated. Okay. So I'm not like that guy.
Did I tell you my perspective on vaccinations? Did I tell you that?
No.
So my perspective on vaccinations is that I didn't really care if it killed me or not. I just wanted to be able to travel, so I got the bare minimum of what I needed to be able to travel.
So well, and hey, look, you proved his quote true. He was making it difficult on your daily life, and you lost your ideological bullshit. So
yes. I didn't have any ideological bullshit though, so I wasn't claiming.
Yeah. What bothers me is the fact that he was trying to wield, vaccination requirements as a weapon against the American people. That's what bothers me about it. All right. That brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silberman. Austin Black has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcasts. As a reminder, nothing in the show is to be considered legal advice, and this has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com and say you want it publicly answered in the podcast. We will do our best. All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend.